There was no hell yes, fuck yes moment for you?
Yes. No.
The angels didn't sing, the clouds didn't, heavens didn't part, nothing like that.
It wasn't. Yeah. So I think when people are like, oh, you're just going to know, I did not just know. I did it afraid, knowing that the certain things that were important to me were in place. Like that foundation was in place.
I'm Keltie McGuire, and you're listening to the Kids or Childfree podcast.
Hello, hello. Welcome to the Kids or Childfree podcast. We are back. I am very excited to be here. I hope you're all having a lovely summer, or for our friends down under, those in the Southern Hemisphere, I hope you're having a wonderful winter. I send some heat from Munich because, gosh, it is hot here this summer. I just got back from a trip to Canada where I was visiting friends and family and enjoying the beautiful natural surroundings. We were at a friend's cottage in Ontario, and then one of my favorite Gulf islands off the coast of Vancouver Island. So I'm back feeling refreshed and ready to do this. I have some fantastic conversations in store for you for the balance of season 8. And today is one that I know you are especially going to love because I am speaking with someone by the name of Tess Pereira. Now, Tess and I recently connected as part of my 50 decision conversations, which I will tell you a little bit more about mid-episode. But Tess's story is one that echoes what a lot of you are grappling with, and that is a partner who has a difference of opinion, as I call it, about this decision. Tess's husband really wanted to have a child, and Tess was actually pretty sure that child-free was the path for her. Now, today, Tess is pregnant, several months pregnant, and we're going to talk about how did she go from being child-free by choice, pretty sure that was the path for her. She was very much orientated that way, to deciding to have a family, start a family, grow her family, I should say, with her husband. You're going to find out today. Hello, Tess Pereira. Welcome to the podcast. We had a few tech snafus today trying to get here, but we're ready to make magic happen. Tell me a little bit about yourself. You are, what we can say is you are a former fence sitter who is currently pregnant with your first child. What else do we need to know about you?
Yeah, so I live here in the DC area. I've been here my whole life. And yeah, I've gone through many changes and how to approach myself, this big decision about whether I want to be a parent or not. I've always been open to improving, changing my perspective. So I'm excited to share how I came to that decision.
Yeah.
What's still on my mind. It's not a perfect decision, but happy to chat about it. And it's very much in this space that you've curated for this community of is men and women who may be on the fence. And it can be a scary thing to talk about or to admit that you're on the fence.
All right. Awesome. Well, I really appreciate you not just being generous with your time to have this conversation, but the fact that you're willing to do so, because with this decision, as I'm sure you can appreciate, we so often speak in absolutes around our feelings with this decision, our confidence around this decision. And I have to say, I believe you are the first guest we've ever had who is pregnant with their first child. I've had people who were, expecting a second, but this is something noteworthy. And so tell me, were you always on the fence, i.e. unsure about this decision, or was there a point at which you were certain you would either become a mom or stay child-free?
For most of my life, I thought I would be child-free. It was only within the last, let's say, year or so that I started considering, all right, well, maybe I could see my life with a child in it. But I was very much, I'm going to be child-free, and I'm okay with that decision, and that's the best thing for me and my life and the way I want to live, my identity. Yeah, it wasn't, and even when I started considering it, I was still mostly in the camp of like, no, I'd be better off being child-free, and that's just what feels right for me. But a lot of that decision was, driven by like my personal life experience and how I interpreted that, like family dynamics, and also a lot of fears. And so I was like, okay, if I put fears aside, could I see myself becoming a parent? And then that sort of reframe, along with some like very practical conversations. It wasn't just like a fantastical, like, oh, having a kid would be such a romantic way to live life. No, that thought never crossed my mind. So yeah, just reframing fear and also some very practical conversations with my husband kind of edged me into the camp of, all right, I'm going to choose to be a parent now.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we're gonna talk about navigating through those fears. I want to hear about how this decision got made, and this idea of us changing our mind is one that I feel like is almost taboo, especially for people who are either decidedly child free or that's always been their preference, because that's of course something that people hear a lot is, oh, you'll change your mind. Yeah, you'll have kids eventually.
Yeah.
Actually, maybe let me ask you this before we talk about sort of how your mind was changed is, did you feel resistance just for the fact that you like this was sort of part of maybe your identity of like, I'm someone who's not going to have kids? And did you ever have a sense of, I don't know if shame's the right word, but this feeling of, kind of putting up guards to say, I'm not changing my mind about this?
Yeah. I mean, like I grew up hearing having kids is just what you do.
Okay.
It's just the natural next step in your relationship. But I resisted that a little bit. Again, family dynamics. Like I saw how my relationship with my parents was turbulent at times. And also seeing, I think it's on like a lot of millennials' minds these days is the cost of living is kind of crazy these days. I was like, wow, having a kid is very expensive. And I wasn't sure that I was ready to give up my time, my energy, and pour it into taking care of someone else. And for a little bit, I did feel a little shame because, again, I think I was mostly surrounded by people who were very much, I guess, had the thought of like, it's just what you do. Like, how could you not just do what you just do? But then I just got more comfortable in it. I was like, look, at the end of the day, I take care of myself. I put my own roof over my head, my own food on my table, my own clothes on my back. Decisions that I make are more important than the decisions that someone else makes. And I would also think like it's very easy for someone else to want you to have a child because they're going to play with it for 5 minutes and give it back to you and then, give back to me. And then I'm going to be the one who's going to be stuck waking up in the middle of the night, dealing with, just the bad things, just a sick child or a temper tantrum or whatever it may be. I think what led me to change my mind was after many, 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 many of very much the same conversations with my husband, who was extremely patient for having the same talk with me over and over and over again until I felt reassured. That kind of started to make me see it in a different light. And not just his desire to have kids, but I think also his belief in me that I'm more capable than maybe I give myself credit for. And that's something that I thank him very much for is always seeing the best in me, pushing me to do things or reach things that I probably never would have done or reached for. So helping to build that confidence and trust in myself.
Yeah.
And I think once I felt like I was in a better place where I trusted myself, like no matter what I do, whether I have a kid or I don't have a kid, I trust myself either way. That was really important. So I felt extremely supported by him. Obviously, I felt very supported by my family who very much wanted this as well. But more importantly, I just felt like I could trust myself. Whether, again, I chose not to have a kid and I could deal with whatever pressures and whatever questions people would give me about why not.
Yeah.
Or choosing to have a kid, no matter how that would have played out for me.
Totally. So it sounds like then, and I'm curious, when did you meet your husband?
Met him in 2018. So we
And so up until that point, were you affirmatively child-free then, or would you consider you were also on the fence at that point?
I think when I first met him, I was very much wanting to be child-free still. Mm-hmm. And that's a conversation that he and I had. I was like, I don't think I see myself having kids. And I remember something said to me. He was like, okay, well, that's fine. All I care about is being with you. But he never said outright, oh, I also don't want to have kids.
Okay.
And then a couple years after that, he shared, he's like, you know what? I feel like for me, the purpose of life is not to be child free. And he had his own perspective as to why. And he basically said, like, I think I'd like to become a parent. I'd like to have a child. And I said to him, I still think I want to be child free.
Okay.
And then we kind of like dropped the conversation for a bit. And I came back and I said, look, we're at a very critical turning point in our relationship where, we can stay together, but I really don't want kids. Or we go our separate ways. And if that's what's best for us, then that's what's best for us. I'd rather have each of us be fulfilled in life, whatever that means for us, than to disagree on a very fundamental thing. But we stayed together, obviously. And
did you, sorry to stop, but I'm just,
Yeah.
I have to ask before I forget. Did you at that point then say like, okay, maybe I would have a child? Or he basically said, okay, if you decide not to, then I do choose you in this relationship? Or like, what allowed you to move past the impasse?
Yeah, he did say, if you choose not to, like, I still just want to be with you. Like, he's very steadfast and very committed to the things that he does and the things that he commits to. So he still said, like, I'll still be with you, but I'm just sharing with you, like, now I'm more open to it. And it's something that I think I would like to do. But I did not feel any pressure from him or any shaming from him. It was just more like, here, let me slide the note across the table. And I just knew, I think I was aware enough to be like, okay, this is a very big thing. This is a turning point in our relationship. And I need to figure out where I stand. Why do I stand where I stand? So we can figure out what's next.
Yeah. So maybe let's talk a little bit more about that. Why you stood where you stood, and you shared some of the things that, like, maybe your own upbringing, what you saw in your own family. Of course, practical considerations like the cost of having and raising a child. What would you say were the main concerns you had or the fears you had about becoming a parent?
I didn't think I would be a good parent. I thought that I would be irritable and impatient and quick to anger. I was worried that I wouldn't know how to, like, properly discipline a child or, raise a child to be a good, respectful person. So I just questioned a lot of, like, my own abilities.
Okay.
Certainly the cost portion of it. I just thought, I was like, oh my gosh, it's so expensive.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was influenced a bit about, like, my dynamic with my parents. Today I'm a little distant from my dad, but when I was younger, I was a total daddy's girl. With my mom back then, absolutely did not get along. But I saw, like, how much she sacrificed and just how, I think, stressed I perceived her to be. And that was for a variety of things. My parents were immigrants, absolutely did beyond their best. But I think we're very stressed with just, I think, like, work and life and the strain in their own marriage. And that came on to us. And I was like, if this is what motherhood is, I don't want that. I don't want to dump that stress. And I'm not confident that I know how to cope with that stress that I feel myself at times with work or with life. So it was more like, oh, I don't want to pass that on, or like, I want to break whatever generational curse I think is maybe happening here. And giving up, like, my free time on weekends or after work. I was like, okay, like, after work, I feel like my brain is mush, and to then have to dedicate more energy and more brain power towards helping with homework or setting aside tomorrow's clothes or planning a play date a month out, or, like, doing all this planning for a child. I just didn't think that I wanted to do that. So it's fears, some practical things. I didn't trust myself, and I didn't think that I would have the support that's really needed. Like they say, it takes a village.
Okay.
And while, I do have friends, and my husband and I, we have friends, I think just because I think it's the nature of like our own natures and also the nature of like the culture where we live around the DC area. It's a very work culture more so than like a community oriented culture. I was like, do we even have enough community around us to help us and to make us feel supported? Or are we going to have to pay for community, pay for daycare, pay for this, pay for that? And I'm like, all right, I can just see like the expenses racking up. Yeah, so those are just some of the things that kind of prevented me from wanting to become a parent for a long time.
Yeah, and I'd be curious to talk a little bit about the wanting, or this idea of like maternal desire, or sort of the seemingly implicit urge that a lot of women have to become moms. Did putting those very legitimate reasons aside, which I appreciate feed into our desire, but like, was that something that you were like curious about, or you had a vision for, or like, it sounds like there definitely wasn't a romanticized notion of motherhood, but maybe you can tell us a bit more about your relationship with like desire for motherhood and how that's maybe shifted.
Yeah, I like kids. My first job ever actually was being like a cooking teacher for little kids.
Oh, cool.
We have this program back home called Tiny Chefs where they do like birthday parties and summer camps and after school programs. And I was one of the cooking teachers. So I like kids. It was definitely never a dislike for children. But I don't think I ever felt that desire to like want my own child or to want to be a parent 24/7. It was always like, I like kids because they're cute and they're innocent and they're sweet and they're goofy and they're funny. But here you go. You can have it back and I'm going to go live my life on my terms, do what I want, when I want, how I want. And I like that. So no, I don't think I ever felt a maternal instinct, but I wouldn't characterize myself as having been cold towards children. I like children. I just never wanted the full-time commitment that I know comes with it. It's like when a child wants a puppy, they like want the cuteness, but the child's not going to feed the puppy. The child's not going to walk the puppy when it's raining and cold outside. Like there's a very real part of being a parent, having a dog. Not that I'm trying to compare kids to dogs,
it's a good comparison.
but it's you have to take care of it. And it's more than just the cuteness and the playing. To your point, you said this like romanticizing motherhood. I never romanticized it. I have heard from people, there's a very fulfilling aspect of it. And I think that was another turning point for me. And I was like, am I fulfilled in my life now? Or like, what could I see myself doing this child-free life? If nothing changed 5 years from now, would I still be happy? And I was like, I don't think so. And it gives you more purpose, something to wake up for, something to look forward to. Now that I am pregnant, I definitely don't think like, okay, I'm going to now just live for this child. I think that's also imbalanced, and I can see that leading to resentments. I'm also trying to not go down that path of like my child is my sole purpose in life. But I can confidently say I was not super fulfilled or had a very strong purpose in my child-free life.
Okay.
And that was another thing that influenced me to be like, well, maybe becoming a parent is something I'd be open to. Yeah.
And I think, the way I sort of think of it as having a child, I think it adds a certain amount of shape to one's life. Like, of course, there's like an understanding that there's going to be certain milestones and like the growth and progress that a child makes in their life and how you change and evolve through that. And I don't think there's anything wrong with having children because you think it'll bring a sense of fulfillment and meaning and purpose to one's life. The only encouragement I give people is to think about, are there other ways in which you might do that? And to your point, are we essentially are we putting all of our hopes and dreams into this one tiny human creature, right? To say like, okay, now you better change everything, make me fulfilled. And, I think for a time that can be the case, but it sounds like you have a pretty balanced approach to that for yourself.
Yeah, I don't want to put all that pressure on anyone, not on my husband, certainly not on a child who didn't ask to be born, to be here, but obviously you want to give them the best. That I think that sense of purpose and fulfillment has to come from within, whatever that looks like for for a woman or for anybody really, any person.
I have a question for you. I appreciate the puppy analogy, and I want to bring that back into the conversation because something that I've often heard, read, and said, and perhaps you've seen similar analogies, is that a lot of people, women in particular, say like men want children like a child wants a puppy, i.e., they don't fully understand or comprehend like what goes into raising this thing, taking care of it, and I think there's some truth in the fact that for men it is easier to maybe see this pursuit of becoming a parent and raising a child a little bit more superficially. And so, was that a concern of yours? Is it a concern of yours? Did you feel like with your husband, like that you wanted to get underneath of his like reasoning, if you will? I'm interested if that's been a thought that's crossed your mind or conversation the two of you have had.
Definitely. And that is something I've said to him multiple times. I'm like, Kevin, men want kids like children want puppies. And I used to say more often, less so now these days, because I think he's more open to learning like what I am going through, what I will have to go through, that there's some real responsibilities that go with it. And it's not just, let me go throw a ball with my child in the yard. It's, hey, when you come home from work, are you willing to like sit down for an hour to try to feed the child and then bathe the child and then do all these things, like give up your life? And I just wasn't sure that he was thinking about all that. Like he's someone that works 7 days a week. He works on weekends too. And I'm like, are you willing to give up your work? You're working on the weekends to take a child to do their activities, to pick them up from a play date, to take them here, take them there. If you have to go somewhere, are you willing to leave that place because they don't want to be there and they're screaming and yelling and kicking? Yeah. And also I think it's different too. He had a different childhood than I did, different relationship with his parents than I did. That was, I think, very positive. Not to say that mine wasn't positive. Again, I know my parents did their best and I had a relatively normal upbringing. But I think he was maybe thinking about it in those terms. I can understand how it's hard for a man to understand what women go through, just like it may be challenging for women to understand what men go through in certain things in life. What I started to do was to just share with him, like, hey, sorry if this is TMI for for the podcast, but I was like, hey, this is how, a woman should be positioned to not tear. This is what the pelvis does. Like, this is what's happening inside of me. This is how I'm feeling. To kind of bring him along for the ride of just the very real, non-romantic, non-sexy side of at least pregnancy. Yeah, I did think my husband was underthinking a lot of things, and wanting a child is not the same thing as wanting to be a parent, right? Wanting to be a parent comes with its own set of challenges and sacrifices, which I'm sure he's ready to make his sacrifices. I just don't know that he was fully aware of everything a woman has to go through. And so I think knowledge is power. So I'm like, okay, he's probably not aware of it because he just hasn't needed to know this stuff. So as I learn things, as I see things, I share them with him. I share with him, my fears. I share with him whatever content I see about, I'd say like a husband and a wife or a mother and a father together, talking about their experience with kids, or from a father's perspective, the things that they do to make their wives feel supported. So I'm trying to like bring him along for the ride, to show him not the doom and gloom reality, but more like the practical things. Like, here's what's actually happening. Like, here's, and we're having these conversations now, like, okay, what's our postpartum going to look like? Who's going to wake up at 2 a.m. and then 5 a.m. and then 7 a.m.? Because I was like, it's not just going to be me by myself.
Yeah.
And so having those conversations early and often, sharing with him, even the stuff that's like only a woman will have to go through, but so that he understands and maybe can empathize a little bit, like, oh, it's not just a cute belly. There's a lot going on there. Sometimes there's discomfort, there's pain. During delivery, there may be discomfort and pain. And what can I do? So I think just trying to expose him and teach him
Yeah.
Here's what it's really like, and here's how you can help, and here's what I'm going through.
Yeah. Has he been receptive to all that? I mean, from what I'm hearing, it sounds like it, but like, what's his response been to you sharing these things?
He has been receptive. Sometimes it's met with an initial face like, oh my God, you go through what? It tears where? You need to do what to fix, to heal that? But then he's open to it because it's true.
Yeah.
It's like the facts of what it is. It's not just, here, let me lie down and push this out. Like, it can take hours, or all these things can happen.
Yeah.
So he's been open to it.
Yeah.
I think he is very aware that he has a real responsibility now to also make sure this new life is healthy and grows and thrives. And it's not just, on me to carry and deliver and raise it. He's going to have to play a real role in raising it too.
Yeah.
Which also includes making, I think, me feel cared for and loved and supported. So we talk about those things. And every now and then he'll surprise me out of the blue and be like, I really appreciate what you're doing and what you're going through right now. So he's always been like pretty conscientious, and I think it's and I recognize that. So when I learn something, I'll share with him, knowing that he'll be receptive.
So I actually connected with Tess through one of my 50 decision conversations that I've been having. And essentially the plan is as such. I want to talk to 50 different former fence sitters about how they made their decision. Was there a singular moment in which they decided, or was it a compilation of different experiences similar to what Tess shares in today's episode? I want to hear about the confidence that you lacked or perhaps have cultivated over time. There's a lot that I'm digging into in these conversations, and my plan is to share all of the results, if you will, the research, the information that I unearthed through these conversations with you, both on the podcast, in future content. We may have some other resources coming your way that will be built on the back of these 50 conversations. I have had 20 conversations so far, so I am looking for 30 more people to speak with. And although Tess is one of the people who have chosen the parenthood path, I am specifically looking for more people who have chosen the parenthood path. So whether you have decided to have kids and have not yet had kids, whether you are expecting, like Tess, maybe you have a child or perhaps two children at this point and you just happen to enjoy listening to this podcast. Maybe there's someone you know who is a parent, who is a former fence sitter, or perhaps you have made the decision to stay child-free. I also, of course, would love to talk to you as well, but I can see right now, based on who I'm speaking to, we do need to definitely get more parents to speak to who are former fence sitters. So we have a representative sampling of 25 parents or parents-to-be and 25 child-free folks. If you are open to having one of these 50 decision conversations with me, if you're on the other side of your decision and just happen to enjoy the podcast and like listening along, you can reach out to me via Instagram. I will include my handle in the show notes. Of course, I'm at Kids or Child Free, or you can drop me an email. Again, I will include my email address in the show notes. Just drop me an email saying you would have a 50 decision conversation with me, be one of my 50, and we will tee up a time to talk. The conversation will be about 30 minutes long, and I can share more details about that when you reach out. All right, let's get back to our conversation with Tess. I think it's really easy with this decision to sort of like shit all over men a little bit and be like, oh man, they have no idea and they're not thinking it through and they're being kind of superficial about it and it's not a puppy. And I'm not saying that like that critique is not warranted, but at the same time, I think we do a big disservice to men by not, I guess through, of course, that labor would normally fall to women, but like men not teaching and passing along and showing, of course, men's role in heterosexual relationships has hopefully for the most part been changing in many relationships a lot. I look at the way my husband shows up versus my dad did for my mom. And in that partnership, it's like, the ignorance is like, I think it could be self-serving in a way, like to just not know, but yeah. I don't think it's always willful. It can be, but what I'm hearing is like, your husband has this openness, the two of you are in constant communication. And like, I'm curious for you, like, I think a lot of times when people decide to have a child with their partner, it's like they want everything to be awesome between the two of them before doing so. And I do think we want to have a certain level of like, like health in our relationship, if you will. But to me, it's always more so about, okay, it's not that like necessarily everything needs to be totally sorted out and everything should be totally dialed in as far as like the balance on the work front and things being equitable. And they understand what mental and emotional labor is and all this. But to me, it's more, do they have an openness to learn? Are they showing progress? Because I think it's very easy for someone to say, and like, I don't know, has your husband ever said things like, yeah, kind of, I'll figure that out when the baby comes, or was this all stuff he has? Okay. And what's your response to that sort of thing? Or like, I'll change when, or I won't do as much video gaming, or whatever the thing is. Like,
yeah. No, he has said things along those lines of, we'll figure it out when it happens. And I think because we started our relationship with a great baseline of communication.
Yeah.
I think. And we're very open to either agreeing to disagree or just hearing the other person out. Something I say is like, we fight well because we know how to repair and we know how to listen. And I think that just has, also played out now into our journey towards parenthood together. But when he says things like that, like, oh, we'll just figure it out when the time comes, there's part of me that I'm like, okay, you can't plan for every scenario.
Agree. Yeah.
You can also be aware of possibilities and potentially have some discussion about like shared values or an understanding of like, well, why is just, if we don't know how to solve it, can we at least understand why it's important to talk about or to bring up or just to be aware of now, even if we don't know how we're going to execute it. Something that we're talking about a lot and having, so we initially had some disagreement over it, but we turn that like initial, that like gut instinct to want to push back into, okay, this is a challenge. This may be a challenge. How do we deal with this challenge together? Mm-hmm. Which is raising a bilingual child.
Okay.
He's American. He only speaks English. My family's Brazilian. I speak Portuguese and English. And for me, it's very important for our child to be bilingual. And I told him, I was like, it's going to be hard because there's a lot of different ways to raise a bilingual child. And I think the way that might work for us is one parent, one language.
Yeah.
Where I'll speak only Portuguese and you'll speak only English. And he kind of pushed back on me. He's like, well, it's going to be hard for us to show up as like one voice, one united front with the child if we're saying different things, or this child is going to play us against each other to say, well, mom said this or dad said that, but we're not really going to know what the other person said because we're not communicating in the same language in our house. But I treated that as like, okay, that is a potential challenge. And we have a lot of runway to figure out how we might be able to address that. So let's figure out how can we control what we can control. And yes, if that time comes that our child says, well, mom said this in Portuguese, but dad's not going to have a clue because dad doesn't speak Portuguese, we'll be better prepared for if and when that hypothetical scenario might play out. So yeah, I think it's not taking the pushback so personally and just treating it as an opportunity to learn and try to figure it out at a time and just try to understand from each other, why is this so important? Like, Kevin, why is it so important for you that we show up as one voice? And is there a way for us to show up as like one voice, one united front, but in different languages? And I think it's like, okay, that comes down to like, what are our shared values? And like, how can we make sure that we're in lockstep with our values, regardless of what language those values get expressed in?
Yeah. Nice. That's a great example. And I like how, thanks for walking us through a little bit about what that conversation looks like, obviously in summary form behind the scenes.
Yeah.
We've jumped ahead a little bit. I want to talk about, so, he says, I choose you. I would like to have a child. You're like, yeah, okay. My preference is to stay child-free. You've talked a little bit about maybe some of those drivers of what made you change your mind, but like, can you walk us through like sort of what the arc was there in terms of the timing? Like, over what period of time did you shift to making this decision? And like, when did you take the leap to say like, yeah, okay, let's try and have a child together?
Yeah. I think I can work backwards a little bit. So I remember like the day we had the conversation of, okay, I'm open to, now trying, which was October of 2025. But leading up to that, I would say it was like maybe 1 to 2 years of conversation. As and I used to like take long walks together, no phones, just us.
Nice. Yeah.
And a lot gets said when you're just together with no distractions, no work, no, nothing. And so we've had a few of those chats about how we might figure it out. Are we financially prepared? Are we professionally? Like, where are we professionally? So we had a lot of just very practical conversations. I had a lot of like emotional fears, like, oh, am I going to be disrespected as a parent? But those are things that I have to work on myself. And there's a very pragmatic side of raising a child, which is like, do we live in a safe area? Do we have enough money? Are our jobs as secure as they can be in today's day and age? And a lot of those pragmatic boxes were checked for us, which helped to start assuaging some of my fears, especially the fears around like cost of raising a child. Because I know that can add a lot of stress. Like if you don't have the money, if you have to work 3 jobs, I think that can add undue stress onto a child. And I just didn't want to live in that scenario. But I was like, okay, that's not our situation. Pragmatically, we're in a good place to have a child. Now, mentally and emotionally, I have a lot of fears. So what can I start doing to address those fears? And it also helped that I think he believed in me and has always demonstrated like a belief in me. It wasn't just hey, now that I want a kid, let me tell you what I think you need to hear so that I can get what I want. This has been a constant in our relationship. So I knew that it was coming from a genuine place and not a self-interested place. But yeah, we had conversations about like, well, what does our support network look like? Like your mom is here, my mom is there. If we need to afford help to come in, we can afford that. So then that like support piece of it was in place. So as we like talked about these blocks, like the pragmatic block, the support block, and then that was more so like my mental, emotional kind of block to build the house towards parenthood, which is like I think like we are constant works in progress. But I knew that I could trust myself to learn, and to grow, and to want to change and be open to doing things a little differently. Like I know that I have that capacity to handle anything that comes my way. Like I say jokingly, like I'm like a cat. I'll always land on my feet. I might not be comfortable and I might go kicking and screaming because I get stressed in the moment, but I'll always figure it out. And I know that in my bones about myself.
Yeah.
So over the years, conversations related to those areas, I think the repetition helped because it helped to solidify it. But yeah, it wasn't like, I tell people like it wasn't, because people ask me to, my friends ask me too. I have a lot of child-free friends. And they asked me like, oh, how did you know? And I was like, well, it wasn't like an epiphany. It was in the same way that you have like death by 1,000 paper cuts. It was a decision made up by a lot of helpful conversations that instilled the confidence in me to be open to becoming a parent.
Sounds like it was something that the two of you did together, and that it sounds like you felt very supported by your husband to work through things. And it wasn't like there was this ultimatum of like, correct me if I'm wrong, but like, you got to decide in the next 6 months. Otherwise, I'm out of here or whatever.
Yeah. No, again, I never felt pressured by him. I always felt very supported. He listened to the same fears and concerns I had 10 times over. And that helped me feel more comfortable moving in the direction of wanting to become a parent.
Yeah. Were there other things? Like, I mean, it sounds like lots of conversations between the two of you and you like sort of cultivating that inherent sense of self-trust. Was therapy part of that? Were there any like resources in particular around this decision, or like or was it really just about the two of you having that constant kind of back and forth, would you say?
Yeah, there's definitely some external factors. I do therapy, so I know I have that as an outlet. I have supportive friends those who don't have kids, and even those with kids, who are very empathetic and down to earth and incredibly understanding and offer like so much grace. Like, if I wanted to say the craziest thing in the world, they would listen to it non-judgmentally. And so knowing that I have that support around me. And frankly, once I started tuning into your podcast and like following you, I think something that I heard on your channel or on your social media at some point was like, knowing that you'll be okay no matter what happens. Like, there is no right or wrong choice. It's, I think I may be paraphrasing, but it's like, do you trust that you'll be all right no matter which path you take? And that helped me feel like, okay, there's no right or wrong here. There's what you choose and then how you handle it. And do you trust yourself to handle it well? I think that helped to relieve some pressure, and also made me like look inwards, like, okay, will I be okay if I just be a parent? Yes. All right.
I'm going to ask you a question I love asking my clients when they're on the fence, which is, well, let's say this. We talk a lot about the idea of 100% certainty or confidence. Is that even possible? What was the tipping point for you to say, okay, I'm ready. Let's do this? Where did you get to? Were you like, oh, I'm 80% sure, I'm 90%? Was it 51? Where were you?
Yeah, it was definitely not black or white. It was not 100%. I think I was just barely over the side. I would even say, like, at the time we had that conversation of, okay, I think I'm open to this. I was maybe like 51% in the camp of open to becoming a parent and having a child. So, and I remember that conversation was filled with, I'm open, but this could happen, that could happen, that could happen, and rehashing all my fears. But
you were scared then still.
I was still very scared. Oh my gosh, still very scared. But I think it came down to like the accumulation of like all the conversations we had around, are we pragmatically in a good place to do this? Mm-hmm. Like with house security, do we live in a safe place? Job security, finances. Do I feel supported, and do we have a decent support community around us, or people that we can call upon? Am I doing things to take care of myself? Like, do I do therapy? Do I exercise? Do I trust myself? Like, I think a thing I hear with a lot of women is, oh, I'm gonna like never get my body back, or I'm never gonna be the same. It's like, yes, I'm never gonna be the same. And I trust myself to like be better or be different. Like, I know that I exercise. That's an important part of me and my identity. So whatever I'm going to look like physically on the other side, it's going to be different, but I'm accepting of her, and I will make sure that future me or mom me is going to be, as healthy as possible. But it was definitely not it wasn't a black or white. It wasn't even then, it was not a fuck yes decision.
I was going to say, there was no hell yes, fuck yes moment for you.
Yes. No.
The angels didn't sing, the clouds didn't, heavens didn't part, nothing like that.
Okay. Yeah. So I think when people are like, oh, you're just going to know, I did not just know. I did it afraid, knowing that the certain things that were important to me were in place. Like that foundation was in place.
I love that. I think, yeah, I think with this decision, no matter what we choose, fear has to come along for the ride with us. And like you said, you've laid that foundation. You've done a lot of that work. You continue to do that with your partner. And I'm interested. Okay, so I mean, I think you said October was when you were kind of like, okay, 51%. I've just barely moved over the line. Now, you told me just now it's June. You're 5 months pregnant. So that happened pretty quickly. Like, were you surprised how quickly you were able to become pregnant? And how did that feel finding out? Was it a happy moment? Was it a scared moment?
That's a great question. And I don't mean to underwhelm anyone who's watching or listening. It was a very calm moment. Okay. I was not ecstatic, to be honest, but I was also not sad or, upset in any way. I was just like, when I found out in March, I was like, okay, this is happening. I wanted this to happen. Like, these are, well, if it isn't the consequences of my own decisions.
I was going to say, you kind of knew how that all works,
exactly.
Right?
Yeah. No, I mean, I was not, again, I wasn't surprised because it's something that I knew I was planning for, I was open to, and it's just a matter of time. My doctor said, if it doesn't happen within 6 months, call me and then we'll start, exploring other treatment options. But it happened within that 6-month window from between October and March.
Can I ask how old you are, by the way? I'm not sure if we mentioned that.
Yeah, I'm 35.
Okay. Okay. That magic number.
Yes. So, I think like mentally and in terms of life experience, I feel like I'm in a better place than I definitely would have been in my 20s. In my 20s, there's not. And sometimes I even joke, like, I'm a 35-year-old having my first teenage pregnancy. Like, it feels
like it. Yeah.
Like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is happening to me. And I certainly don't, whatever 35 is supposed to feel like, I don't always feel 35. But I was just very calm when I found out. And it's an interesting experience to find out, because it's like, oh my gosh, this is a secret that only I know right now. And I held on to it for a couple of days.
Before telling your partner?
Before telling my husband, yeah. But when I told him, obviously he was very surprised. He was surprised. And I was like, we knew this was going to happen eventually. It was just a matter of time.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
And I'm interested at that point. So finding out in March, were you like still like 51%, or did you like then vacillate the other way? Or like, has it been a continual march towards greater confidence around this? I'm interested what that's been like for you.
Yeah. Again, the day I found out, it was not like, it was not a hell yes moment, but it was more of like a pragmatic, like, okay, I've been open to this. I've been trying for this. And what do I need to do next? Like, what's the next practical thing or the next set of practical things that I need to make sure happen so that this goes smoothly, so that this is as stress-free as possible, so that I'm okay, so that the baby's okay, my marriage is okay, and everything's okay. So I think generally I've been a pretty practical person my whole life. And I think I'm treating this with the same level of pragmatism around it. So when I found out, I think each week or each month has built my confidence and maybe my excitement for it a little more.
Yeah.
Like, I'm certainly more so looking forward to it, but still being very practical and like, okay, now I need to figure out my like postpartum care. Now I need to figure out this. Now I need to start looking at schools. And that just makes me feel better. And I think helps, I don't know, build my happiness or how much I'm looking forward to it. Cause I'm like, okay, I'm checking these important boxes that will make a difference in my life and in my child's life, more so than Like, what color do I want the nursery to be? And for some women, that's what they look forward to, and that's great. But I'm just trying to think of like what's really going to move the needle, what's going to be critical, what's going to make a difference to my well-being, the well-being of my marriage, and the well-being of my child. And let me make sure that foundation is in place. And I know that if that foundation is solid, whatever gets built on top of it will be fine.
Yeah. I have to say, it's so refreshing to hear someone who, and listen, maybe it's not refreshing for certain people listening, right? It might be like, oh, but you should be starry-eyed and be that 100% hell yes and be excited about the nursery. But I do think there is a risk to that kind of like, I don't want to say it's romanticization, but like there is a little bit of that. The fact that you are attuning yourself to, what do I need? What does my child need? What does my marriage need? Those are ultimately what are, like you say, are going to be the important things moving forward. It actually doesn't matter what color the paint is. And I think sometimes that can also be a distraction from, and of course we can do both, but it's like, I agree. If I had to choose, I would be having these big, important conversations around things like values and like, what do we anticipate might come up in the future? And hey, honey, this is what's happening with me and my body. And like, I just think that's what's so much more important. And I think when we get swept into the other stuff, which I personally think is where a lot of women get really, I don't want to say blindsided by this whole experience, but it's like, it's by looking at things a little bit superficially as opposed to what's like underneath the surface. I'm not sure if you feel similarly, but like, do you think there's an upside to you being pragmatic about this above what you've shared already?
Definitely. I think that there's a lot that we don't see that happens behind the scenes of a positive experience that we go through. The experience, I think for people, it generally feels like euphoria or like positive emotions, positive memories. But the behind the scenes of like what made that experience possible is logistics, was planning, was like being thoughtful, like think about, I don't know, the best restaurant experience you've had or the best hotel experience you've had. Like you as the customer, you're like, wow, I felt like I didn't have to lift a finger. I didn't have to do a thing. And I just kind of flowed through it nicely. And that's the romantic, beautiful, exquisite memory that you have. But behind the scenes, you had like, people were planning. People had to plan inventory. They had to make it feel seamless for you. And so I'm kind of seeing parenthood or preparing for parenthood a bit like that. Like, how can I make this be, positive experience? Well, there's a lot of behind the scenes things, like practical things that have to happen for it to be lovely and romantic and memorable and fun and beautiful.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to sound like a giant stick in the mud. Like I do share with my husband, like, hey, now it's the size of, this heirloom tomato and, to kind of make it fun and make it feel real. And certainly when I share with other people, like everyone else is excited, of course. And so that in turn makes me feel excited. And I do get to experience like the emotional upside of it all. My mom and my dad, knowing that they're going to be grandparents, like their reactions were wonderful. My mom's reaction is so excited every single time. And so that certainly like helps to build, like the positive association with it. So I'm not just being militant about my preparation. But I just know that like the more prepared I am and I feel, which I think comes down to the pragmatic side, the more likely I will have a positive experience. And everyone around me will too. My husband will, my parents will, my in-laws will. But it's not lost on me that this comes with a lot of responsibility, and it's not just cute photos and cute outfits. There's a lot that goes on behind the scenes that I don't think it's talked about enough or appreciated enough. And for that, like, I'm super grateful for social media. I think I have come across, your community and other creators who are like, this is what it can actually be like behind the scenes, and this is what you can do to prepare. Like, these are the non-sexy things that I do so that I'm ready for X event to potentially happen.
I would love, I don't know if you can let me be an asshole on the internet and say, oh my goodness, she's having a child and only 51% in favor or sure, which again, for clarification, and I mean, where you're at today aside, but I'm hearing the confidence is growing, the enthusiasm for this is growing, but like, what would you say to the idea that unless we're a hell yes with this decision, it's a no? What are your thoughts on like, why should somebody maybe consider that actually it's okay to still have one foot on the other side of this decision or to have reluctance? Hit back at that jerk who leaves the rude comments, on posts like my own.
Yeah. Look, for most of my life, I was like that. Like, it's either a hell yes or it's a no. And that's how I would easily and in quotes, easily make decisions. Because I can be a very indecisive person. It will take me forever to deliberate about something and then act on it. So I've treated a lot of things as in that black or white, hell yes or no manner. For something like this, where it was not a hell yes from the start, I had to, looking back on it, I felt like I really had to focus on what do I value? Really, what's important to me? And are those things in place or in a state where I can like build upon them? So for me personally, I can summarize as what I valued was, am I supported? And like, what does support look like? Do I have a good partner to do this with? Are we going to be a good team? My family, are they around? If they are around, like, are they supportive? What conversations do I need to like have ahead of time to manage expectations and all that with them? The finances part of it, like, do my husband and I both have jobs? Do we have savings? What do our finances look like? And are our financial values aligned as well? And trust in myself, because I can't just look externally. Like, life is not all about money, and I can't just like look towards my partner to like always be my anchor, and I'm going to be this crazy flag blowing in the wind without any structure. Like, do I trust myself to be steady, to learn, to grow, to be patient, to apologize, to recognize when I'm wrong and be willing to do something about it, to ask for help, ideally before I need it, but when I need it. So those were the values that were important to me. And even though I was not in I will absolutely say, like, in October of 2025, when I made the decision, my trust in myself was not as high as it is today.
Okay.
But the baseline was enough that I was like, okay, I know that I'm a resourceful person and I know that I'll figure things out. And it might not always look elegant and easy and pretty, but I will always figure things out. And I trust in myself to do that. Yeah. So that's what was important to me. It was like support, the pragmatic side, and self-trust. And even though the self-trust part was not totally there and still needed to work on it a little bit, it was enough that I was like, okay, this is sturdy enough that I can leap off of this.
Yeah. My very last question for you is like, how are you feeling today, being 5 months pregnant? What are you excited about for the future? Just maybe paint a little picture of how you are in this moment right now.
Yeah. I mean, right now, physically, emotionally, I feel great. Back to the gym, back to getting physical movement and moving. As long as I don't stop moving, I will feel better. All the pragmatic things are in place. So I feel at ease and at peace about that. My basic needs are definitely met. And I am looking forward to raising another little human to be like a contributor to this world, to learn and grow alongside my child too. I'm looking forward to who I'm going to become and how I'm going to evolve, see how my my husband's also going to evolve. So I'm looking forward to seeing what could be and having a hand in shaping that, I think.
Very cool. Well, thank you for sharing your journey with us thus far. Maybe we can have a check-in at some point in the first year and see how you're doing.
Thank
I'm
you.
curious how things evolve for you, and I'm excited.
Thank you very much. Thank you for creating this space for people to have these open conversations. They've been really helpful for me to listen to, folks who have kids, folks who don't have kids. And I really appreciate that, you're not here to change anyone's mind, but simply to share perspectives. And so that's why I was happy to share my perspective and my experience. I absolutely support people who choose to be child-free, and I respect the hell out of that. That takes a level of self-awareness. So I can definitely appreciate that very much.
Yeah. Thank you. If people want to reach out, maybe there's something that you've shared that's resonated with them. Is there a place they can connect with you? And we can put that in the show notes. I'm not sure if it's on LinkedIn, if you have an Instagram account, if there's any means of doing so.
Yeah. And people are welcome to email me if they'd like, or send me a direct message that way. My email is tess711rp@gmail.com.
Perfect.
Or reach out to me on social media, on Instagram. Although my Instagram is private, shoot me a message and I'll, check it out. I think it's at Tess.Pereira, my last name, Pereira. And happy to connect with anyone there, whether someone just wants to share where they're at or wants to learn more about, how I made my decision or how things are going. Happy to be a non-judgmental ear. And again, I'm absolutely not here to change anyone's mind about anything, but I know how important it is to want to feel heard and understood in this huge decision in your life.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for offering that and for sharing your story with us today.
Awesome. Thank you, Keltie.
Did you know that you can not only listen to the Kids Are Child-Free podcast, but you can actually also watch the Kids Are Child-Free podcast by checking out the Kids Are Child-Free YouTube channel? Yes, it is true. You know what? I love having these conversations with my guests, and I just feel like when we're able to immerse ourselves in the visual experience of these really important conversations, it lends just that much more. I've also been told, side note, Chris was totally teasing me the other day saying, my God, look at your expressions. He loves my very expressive face, but you can see me making all the faces, all the reactions when I talk to my guests. That in itself, I would say, is entertainment enough. No? In any case, check out the YouTube channel. Again, you'll find every episode of the Kids or Child-Free podcast on there. And you can also check out a bunch of different short form videos on there, other podcasts that I've appeared on. We've got all kinds of good stuff for you, again, on the Kids Are Child-Free YouTube channel, which I will link in the show notes of this episode. Make sure you subscribe when you head over there. And if there's an episode you love, leave us a little love, share some thoughts, ask some questions. I will do my very best to respond to each one of you over there on YouTube. All right, that is all from me. Thank you so much and have a beautiful day.